Yes.
Hey, girl, hey.
Hi. Oh, you have a new thing in your teeth.
No, it's been here for months now, almost a
No,
year,
this
damn
one,
near. They've
that
been
looks
there.
bigger. Not that
These?
side, the other one.
Yeah, it's been there for a long time.
What's a long time?
Months. You've already commented on it.
It looks very. Did you get your teeth whitened? It's really shut. Like, something feels different.
I don't know. Maybe I got some new mouthwash. That's for sure. I'm really feeling it. Really
What
liking it.
kind? I need
Oh, I
some.
forgot, but it's recommended by doctors. I was like Listerine. I don't know. I'm gonna go. The branding got me. The branding really got me.
You
Jojo, what's
stay
the name of that? What's the name of that mouth freshener in
mouthwash.
there, Joe? TheraBreath.
TheraBreath. Because I was about to say you stay coming on here to talk about something that you love and not telling us.
For everybody, I have to share this. It's Clorox cleaner and bleach. It's the green bottle because somebody texts me like, "Girl, there's multiple Clorox cleaners and bleach. Which one?" And I was like, "Okay."
I have a yellow bottle as well, the lemon. I do
Oh,
have that as
really?
well.
How do you feel compared to the green?
I just use both of them. I don't really think about it. But you feel very strongly about this. I trust your opinion. I feel like maybe I haven't paid attention to the green enough, so I got you.
TheraBreath. Is that what she just said?
Mm.
Mm.
They heard it the first time. It's fine.
Well, that's what
What
I've
is
been
this
using.
pendant that's on the two?
It's
What
a
is it?
horse. It's an eye of
Oh, I
Horus.
did talk about that because I
Yeah.
remember calling you a hotep. I love it.
It's a
Yes,
eye of,
queen.
or maybe I'm closer. Well, you know
Ashe.
what? I also went to Sephora and I got some. It's been melted off, and I didn't quite. This is not the best reflection, but I got new makeup that I'm so excited about, girl. This is addictive. Look what I got, girl. If you're on Patreon, you will see. Got one of those little things that the girlies use.
Oh.
I'm very excited about it. You don't use it, but I really like
I
it.
have a
You
I
got
don't
one of
have the
them?
finger one, but I have a sponge that I use. I have
And
the
I got new brushes. I got lots of new stuff
Oh,
that
you
I
spent
feel
money on brushes? Girl, you gotta
just
get
one.
brushes for cheap.
I
Okay.
just got one. I got a new. If y'all on
They are not
Patreon, you would
paying
know. I
for
know. That's why
this.
I gotta shut up. But
Yeah.
I
Show
had a
me
lot of fun
offline.
there. That was a really good time. And we went to a high school fair. Jolie went to her first high school fair, and it's in the convention center in Philadelphia. And it's just a sampling of all of Philly's finest and worst public and private schools. And I think we have our top 5. So now I have to start the application process. I've been pushing for
You apply? She doesn't apply?
we, you know, yeah,
Oh, I
I
thought that was
definitely
a parent.
oversee it.
It's changed so much. I'm
You
like,
were applying for your own schools in high school? Your parents? I basically did. I don't
yeah.
remember my parents doing nothing.
I mean, they oversaw it definitely, but they were like, "You gonna sit down and write this and fill this out."
Oh
They
no.
sat with me though. They did.
No, everything's
But they were like,
online
"You have
now.
to learn how to do this." Yeah. See, it's so different. We had to sit there and write. We had to write a essay. I'll put a portfolio together for certain schools. Have your recommendation letters,
All of that's required now still.
but it's just online.
Yeah, it
Is that how
depends.
it is?
It's convoluted and confusing and
Yeah.
annoying, and
Even the tests are different. Like it's
I
not the
have
SAT nines anymore.
it's the
Weird.
Iowa test now. And yeah, it's all different.
Mhm.
Or
Crazy.
because she goes to a private school, what's required is different. Anyway, I'm excited that she has schools that she's excited about. Kappa, which you and that's where we met, which I was wanting her to go to, is not number high on her list, which I'm like
It will
geeked
be when
and
she goes.
flabbergasted by it.
She has to go to the open house, and
Well,
then she might feel different.
tomorrow is our first open house, so it's all happening. It's all happening.
Oh.
So that was just interesting, and there was a lot of feeling overwhelmed initially, but once I saw the schools, got to speak with the students. All of them, of course, they had the creme de la creme out there, but all those kids were
Mhm.
really talking their ish, really excited, really diverse, really just confident. It made me feel excited for her. Like, I'm so excited for her to go to high school. And it was we just in a new phase. We just in a new phase, and her having some excitement, and her like slowly it's all coming together for her as well. It's like, oh, like this is what we're doing. This is what's
That's crazy.
happening.
It's been that
So,
many years. That's nuts.
yes, can you believe that?
No, like we met in high school and now you have a kid that's going to high
Going
school.
to high school.
Old.
Life
Old.
comes at you fast when you're just trying to figure out why you're here.
And when you have unprotected sex.
And when life comes at you fast when you did you see what I sent you?
No, I didn't. You
Oh
sent it on
God.
Instagram. I haven't been on Instagram,
I'm
but
gonna have
somebody
to.
called and was like, "I'm listening to an episode." Shout out to this caller. They was like, "I'm listening to the most recent episode." I was like, "It's definitely not the most recent episode, beloved." She was like, "Shanti talk about what the surf and skateboard." I was like, "That's definitely old." And then she was like, "And then all of a sudden, she just reminded us not to get pregnant." And I went and took my birth control.
I know.
So shout out to you, girl. I cracked up. I was like, I don't know who this sweet being is. This on episode like 200, but shout out to you because you're rocking with us. But
And
that's a
also,
good reminder.
this is another reminder for all of you.
Don't
Stop
get
playing.
pregnant.
Don't get pregnant. It's scientific. You don't know where babies come from till you figure
Or
out where they
do
come
get
from.
pregnant if you want to get pregnant.
If you
Have a
don't
plan.
though.
Shut up,
For
Shanti,
real.
says the
It's
mom.
hard out here.
All right. For those of you on Patreon, I'm about to show you something disgusting. It's already grown a bit, but this happened to me while meal prepping. And that is my nail. And that nail is a stub of what it was. And it's already grown quite a bit because it's been like a week.
Shout
But
out to the human body.
my nail bed is very much exposed. It hurt very badly. And now I'm going to have ugly nails. First of all, these are so grown out. And all because I put my hand in the refrigerator drawer and I was stuffing vegetables down and then pulled it out and that top part ripped that nail off with it. I
Yeah.
said, good Lord. Blood everywhere. I was in here crying.
Are you gonna get your
Pissed.
nails done again?
Not for a while. I can't like this. But they going, girl. So I don't know what to do. I just be wearing band-aids with it. I took it off so I can show y'all. I just cover it up like, oh, I have an injury. Whatever. I want to put y'all onto something. My sister put me onto something and I want everybody to know about it. It is called the Yuka app. And I said this in a group chat. Nobody really responded, but I love this app. I'm going to show it on the Patreon. This is the app. And you can scan your stuff, like stuff being the things that you eat, or even your makeup. They don't really have a lot of household products on there. But, girl, you scan your stuff and it tells you it tells you everything, whether on a scale of 1 to 100, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
What do you mean?
And so, for instance, I scanned this very fancy soap that everybody likes. You know what's this one called? The
Dr. Bronner's?
Aesop. No, Dr. Bronner's came 100. The Aesop soap. This is in like all of
Yeah,
the.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's terrible.
For
37 out of 100 poor. These are all of the risks, the risky ingredients. I think that they
oh.
use the European standards. It's the only time I'm fucking with the European standards, but they use the European standards as a basis for how they rank this.
Mm.
And it's like they give you the risk of everything. But the best part is they recommend what's better
Oh, I love it.
and what's
Let
better
me
for
download
you.
this. I don't know where my phone is, but
Yeah,
what's it called?
Yucca. Like I
Tell them
did my
to give
brown
us a
rice. It's excellent. But baby girl, that Paul Mercier butter, I already knew. I told Bay, I
oh,
said you
you
need to
know
throw that
that ain't
away.
right.
Poor.
Can you
Girl, you
put
know
in
what else
this?
was poor? No, you have to scan. So you scan the barcode. I actually scanned CeraVe and it did well. But what's really interesting too is different flavors of things. So I've just been in the store like scanning stuff. It's wonderful for shopping. Um because I'm really getting into ingredients and like what is
Girl,
in this food. I'm very nervous about cancer. I'm very nervous about just getting older and having these things impact us. Scanning water, Essentia. If you are an Essentia person, throw that away. That is
why
not
is how is
good.
water bad? Because of the
Oh, so much
plastic in it
water.
in the
So
because of
much
the
water.
plastic?
Not just the plastic. I'm gonna go to it right
I
now.
wanna get a Berkey. First of all, we don't pay none of these
No,
niggas enough.
I'm gonna talk to you about Berkey. There's a better option instead of Berkey because Berkey, there was a lot. I was researching this all last night. Berkey, there is a lot of what is it, copper or something in the water that doesn't quite run out. So there's another one that is a. It's what my mom has at her house. It's a reverse osmosis system, and it's just as much as the Berkey. It does have to be plugged into the wall, but it is the cleanest water that you can find in terms of like an at-home system. And it just sits on your little
It's
counter.
small, it's more compact than the Berkey?
It's definitely more compact than the
Okay,
Berkey. I
well, I'm
wouldn't
sold.
necessarily say it's small, but it's the same kind of price point, and the filters are the same kind of price point. So you're looking at like 400 and some dollars, but it is an investment into your health. And they were doing tests against the Berkey, and that one was I think 94% like pure water, whereas the Berkey was like 77. I was just on like all the YouTubes and all the people testing it, all the scientists.
Around the Way Girls hasn't been paid by any of these brands. These is just a personal anecdote provided
Well,
by
I'm
the
shitting on
listeners.
some of the brands too. So hold on. Hold on for more info. Yeah, I don't know how to say this stuff, but in Essentia, there's diopotassium phosphate, which is
That ain't right.
hazardous. There's sodium bicarbonate. Um, I don't, it's an anti-caking agent. Why is that in water?
Girl, don't scan none of your makeup because you're
Girl,
gonna be so
I
upset.
scan sacred. Poor. Next, moving right along. I was like, oh, my heart breaks. So anyway, that's called the Yuka app. I highly recommend it. We should know what's
You
in our
seen that?
things. And just know that just know that depending on the flavor of things, it also changes. So like some things are like if you look at like a chip or a cracker, like some flavors are with
That
good
garlic herb
oils.
be bad.
Some flavors are with bad oils. It's very interesting in that way. So go ahead, mama.
I don't have anything else to say. Do you have more
Oh, okay.
updates?
I do actually. Um Eric Adams, that was breaking news last time. And guess what? He was indicted on a lot more than what I said. So I just want to put
$10
that out
million.
there.
He crazy.
Yes. That he stole $10 million of public funds. So that I was reading that as we went. That is nuts. And I guess I'm gonna need to get into Eric Adams. Pause. Yuck. But on an upcoming episode on all the things of maybe we gotta bring Olay back for that, but she probably reserving that for her channel. And then just two more things. There are very few people in the world that can roast a chicken better than me. I don't come on here and really brag about my cooking often because it's interesting. I just got off the phone with a friend who I love, but she is a troll of mine. And she called me to give me hell about posting about this roast chicken. And she's like, just
Why?
because you got a man, now all of a sudden you could cook. You ain't never cooked for us. You ain't never want us to taste your roast chicken. We ain't even know you could bake. But it like just going in on me. And I was like, I have to be honest. I never told y'all that I could cook. She was like, all you ever did was bring salad. I was like, I never told y'all that I could cook or even express wanting to cook for y'all because you say that all my cooking is white and it's not a safe space. It's not.
I never said that.
I didn't say you, but you know who I'm talking about. And she was like, that's not true. Getting on my fucking nerves. So now for the Friendsgiving, I will be roasting a chicken.
Oh,
This
delightful.
chicken I brined that chicken for 2 days and roasted that bad boy with some red skin potatoes, some onions, Boy, some fresh rosemary. I did the rosemary with the garlic in the pan first with the butter, doop, 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 and the thyme, doop, 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 to get that butter sauce right. Season that chicken up, pour it on there.
Let me
Got the
tell you
skin
something.
crispy. Real fast, Shanti. I cut it. I went to cut a piece of the breast.
What happened?
It broke in half. It just broke in
Delicious.
half.
Okay, you do it in a Dutch oven with the top on.
But of course, and then I take the top off to get that skin crispy. Turn it up a little bit. 350 for about 30 minutes, then 400 until it's ready to go. You heard it here first.
Roast chicken is my comfort food.
I know it is.
You make a good roast
chicken too.
I love chicken. I love roast chicken with crispy potatoes.
These potatoes aren't crispy though.
No, you do a Dutch oven, which is more of a. I do it where I don't cover it. My chicken's completely
You do a rack.
exposed. Yeah, I put it on a rack.
Okay.
I do.
A rack is nice. I've done a rack
because it makes it super super crispy. If you leave it alone and you're not going in and basting it, and you just leave it in there and you fuck with the temperature to your point, and then you cracks through. You cut it and the skin goes, and then it's just juices that come out. But I don't do a day brine. I'll do like maybe a couple hours before, but I don't think ahead. The day brine might be lit.
I did 2 days this time because I didn't have enough time to bring it out and get it to room temperature. So I put that bitch back in the refrigerator last night.
Roasting chicken is an art. There's some restaurants that inject the chicken with butter inside interstitial injections of butter. Roast chicken, baby.
Delicious.
A culinary masterpiece if it's done well. So shout out to you. I know your man like, damn, I love you.
I sent him a picture and he just put a thumbs up on it.
I'll wait till he puts it in his mouth.
Listen. And then lastly, I just want to make sure that we send light and love to the people affected by Hurricane Helene.
Oh my God.
Wasn't she a bitch? She came through with the come through. 100 people have passed away. There are still people missing, which is like, I was watching coverage of folks, I forget the town, and I apologize, specifically in North Carolina.
Asheville.
Is that what it is?
Asheville's one of them affected, which is like the hot spot in North Carolina. It's like the metropolitan. It's the place where you go.
Yeah.
I saw images of a lake, a huge lake that has debris, boats, buildings. It's just completely. He said it's going to take years and years to clear that. It's ruined, destroyed. No turning back. No returning to that normalcy. Let me tell you something. Mother Earth is going to shake us off like a flea. She do not care.
That part. And then, anyway, I don't know if I should even say that because I don't want to politicize things. But I feel like this is the time when everybody wants to be a socialist. This is the time when all the governors, when DeSantis is like, we need help from the federal government. This is the time when they understand that concept the most. It's very interesting.
Or when those $1 billion that are being sent to fight these proxy wars, we could use that money, couldn't we? We need that, don't we?
For something a little better off, yeah. But I just want to, on a human level, like, I'm really sorry to those folks. I saw whole homes just falling into the ocean. Could you imagine working your whole life? You get your dream home. It's beachfront property. You're all excited. And then it's all gone. Your memories, your photos.
Nope. I can't. And then what do you do? And then it's like, oh, you still need to eat. You still need to drink. You need clothing. You need somewhere to rest your head. You need to nurse your baby. Diapers need to be changed. Then like life just still demands you to keep going. And it's like, what? Yeah. God help us.
So, all right. Change the subject. Let's actually take a break. Can you take a break?
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hot shit. And we are back. Shout out to the Culture LP for holding us down with this amazing opportunity. So, again, we want to remind all of our listeners that the Philharmonic is presenting Afromodernism, music of the African diaspora. This takes place on October 17th and 18th, and it is a powerful program that celebrates the voices of Black composers and their impact on the classical music world. Celebrate the work of Black creators under the direction of conductor Thomas Wilkins, where they will explore how the arts and cultures of contemporary Africa and the African diaspora influenced modern arts movements. This series features music by Black composers Carlos Simons, Four Black American Dances, and Natalie Joachims? Is that how you say that, Shanti?
Joachims?
Joachim's,
Sorry.
apologies, Queen, newly commissioned cello concerto, a family friendly concert with activities for children and a free concert highlighting Afro diasporic experimental composers, plus a free panel where they will discuss all of the fashions in their exhibit. Don't miss this incredible celebration and make sure you grab your tickets at nyphil.org. And for our listeners, we are offering a discount code. The discount code is in all capital letters, no spaces, Culture LP20. That information will be added to the episode description, so make sure you check it out there. All right, voicemails. So, friends, we haven't had voicemails in a while. Have you missed them?
Absolutely. What are y'all talking about?
Well, here we go. We have two of them that we will play, but I just want to let everybody know we have an incredible, when I say incredible guest today, I'm so excited for everyone. I'm not even going to say who it is. I'm just so excited for everyone to be able to take part in this conversation. I know that it will be a fruitful one, and you have to stay tuned for that. But until then, we are going to get acquainted with some of the listeners, and thank you all for calling. First up.
Good afternoon, ladies. Hey, Shanti. Hey, Antoinette. Hey, y'all. I am calling because I listened to it this morning, sorry. And I almost hollered when Shanti said that she has period insomnia. Oh my God. And I tell y'all, I am a fellow smoker. Say hey to Jade for me. That's my girl. I live through her to her. I love her. Keep up. But when I tell you I can't get high when I'm on my period, or when my period is about to come, it takes longer for me to get high. Number one, I don't know how that works biologically. Secondly, when I'm in the middle of my period, same thing, insomnia. I cannot sleep. I hate to even say this. I can almost damn near smoke a whole blunt, and I will not be high enough to fall asleep. Same thing. I will wait, counting down the hours. Got 5 more hours till I fall asleep. 3 more hours till I can. It does not matter, but I cannot sleep. I will be tired. Same like Rosie, like I can take care of myself, and it doesn't matter. I set up I got a doctor's appointment Wednesday to try and figure out what melatonin. Nothing helps me to fall asleep. I cannot fall asleep to save my life. So we're going to see what this doctor say Wednesday, but I just love that y'all brought that up. And we clearly need to have another womanly conversation about what's happening biologically when our periods are either on their way or when they're here. Because something has got to give.
It's really interesting because I'm about to get mine, and I think I went to sleep last night at 3, and I don't think I ever correlated that. And I still didn't correlate that even after you said that. Like, I still didn't. But I just always thought, like, oh, I'm stressed
Because you
out.
couldn't sleep?
I
You just
couldn't
couldn't fall.
sleep. It wasn't, I was in bed, but I could not sleep. I was just like listening to, that's when I started researching those water filters.
And there was no stress, or you weren't actively working on it, and that would keep you up.
No.
It's crazy. You are okay though. Like it takes you consecutive days before you crash out. Me, you know me, the next day I'm fucked.
No, you can't function
I
if you
cannot
don't get your
function
sleep.
without sleep. It's terrible. I have yet, I hope, knock on wood, that melatonin, magnesium, all of those things could work. Somebody said that I should take some THC, but the way that will keep me up all night.
Well, CBD, that's an option. Also, orgasm.
Girl, I be orgasming like it's happening over here. But especially before I get my period, that's when I
Somebody
be
else
wanting
said
to.
breathing.
Breathing. I'll try it. But it's the lack of sleep on top of the insanity, the invitation to be insane. That combo is just like,
it's a beautiful combination. It's like, how can I resist?
how can I resist? How can I resist hating and worrying and staying up all night and cyclic
Impossible.
thinking? It's
Duh.
delicious.
Can't combat it. What's better? All right. One more voicemail. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Antoinette and Shanti. My name is Jada. I'm based in Tampa, Florida currently, but I'm from Virginia. That's not relevant. I don't know why I shared that. Anyways, I've wanted to call in so many times about so many things, but I just finished this Monday's new episode, and at the beginning, when you guys are talking about the gym and how Shanti's been feeling like all kinds of things and the gym isn't really helping, and Antoinette, you plugged hot yoga. I'm calling to back Antoinette up here and say that Shanti, if I don't know if you've ever practiced hot yoga or what styles you've tried, but I'm a regular of hot power, which is like a vinyasa flow with a lot of chandarangas, a lot of planks, and a lot of like warrior sequences, building strength and heat in the body. And when people referred to yoga as a moving meditation, I never really felt it until I started practicing hot power, because there's something about the quiet and the like patience and mental strength that you need to keep going. Because, you know, your mind always wants to give up before your body. I know there's a time limit on these. I hope I'm not talking too much. Anyways, so yeah, hot power, I feel like will give you some of the same strengths and look that you might be trying to gain from the gym. Like, I haven't lifted weights in years, and because of hot yoga and like low carb, low sugar diet, I'm high protein. I'm probably in the best shape of my life. Like, I have muscle definition. When I'm in a plank, when I'm in a chaturanga, when I'm in a down dog, you can see my tricep, bicep, and back muscles. So I agree that you should ditch the weightlifting, especially if it's making you hard on yourself, and try out maybe like a month of hot yoga and just see if you notice any changes. Also, I highly recommend a book called Monsters by an author named Claire Dodera. This is not related. This is kind of like a R. Kelly, Diddy, Bill Cosby kind of topic. Monsters deep dives into famed American artists who have done really terrible things, and kind of wrestles with the idea of like art, separating the art from the artist. And the author is a white woman, so she doesn't go too into detail on Black artists. There's a small chapter on Miles Davis. But anyways, maybe one day I'll write the companion piece for Black artists. But until then, you guys should read Monsters by Claire Dodera and then talk about it on the show. Okay, bye. Love you guys.
Looking at it, what an interesting cover. Y'all got hot yoga money? If you haven't joined our Patreon, you can consider now. This will help support me to do that. But I
What
hear you.
a
I hear you on it.
deflection.
Whatever.
That
That's the
is
first thing that came to
Class
my mind.
Pass is real, and Class Pass makes it more affordable. It does. Even if you took 2 classes, just do 1 class. I'm telling you.
I love. I will try it as another medium of exercise. I've loved yoga. I was doing it a lot last year. I have yet to try the hot yoga, so I know I love yoga. I also love lifting, and I will try it. I
We
will
should do
try it.
it
I'll look at the
together.
class pass
You
and
want to
ball.
pop your cherry with me?
Sure, let's go. Let's
Okay.
fucking do it.
I think
I'll
you're
do
gonna
some
really
hot.
like it. I think it'll be intense, but I
Yeah,
think
I
you'll
love
like it.
intensity. I love it. You know, I got a jujitsu thing coming up again. Jujitsu weapons class. I'm here for it. It's in me. It has to come out somehow. So God is leading the way. Thank you for that. Those recommendations as well.
All right.
Recommendations.
All right. So, without further ado, let's get into our interview. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. And we are back and we are very excited, very, very excited to be in conversation with this next guest. Many of the listeners, many of y'all will be familiar with her as we did do various deep dives here on the podcast into her incredible book, Pleasure Activism. And now we are honored and privileged to be in conversation with her discussing her new book, Loving Correction. So please cue the air horns and give a big warm welcome to Adrienne Maree Brown.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Wait, are you the air horn? I love this.
Yes.
You're like, it's me. I'm the air horn. Yeah.
Yes. Welcome to
Hi.
Around the Way Curls.
Thank y'all so much for having me. And thank you so much for having this podcast. I think the space that y'all carve out is so intimate and necessary. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you. First, we want to start before we get into any conversation, just to get a temperature check of how everyone's doing, how everyone's feeling, what they're bringing into the space. So, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing better today than I have been. I kind of hit a wall like over the weekend. I think the knowing that Marcellus was about to be killed, Khalifa, and then watching the expansion of Israel into Lebanon. And there's just, I just felt like I don't know how to do this. We're going to keep, it just like keeps expanding the bad. And then hit a little wall. And a friend of mine was like, girl, what's up with your therapy situation? And I was like, that's right. My therapist kind of just stopped. She like left the practice. It was cute. She was like, "You'll be proud of me. I'm going to pursue something." I was like, "Girl, I need you."
Actually,
I love it.
I was like, I'm glad that you're following your dreams. I am always glad about that. But okay, so that she left the practice, and I hadn't found my new person, and so it was like, you need to find your new person, and so this week I found my new person, and now I'm like back in the saddle of my life.
That's hard, finding the new person. It's like dating.
It's the hardest part. It's the hardest part. And I'm in North Carolina, and a lot of like what I'm looking for, it's very hard to find. I'm just sort of like, I need folks who will not downplay the political conditions that we're in and how those will impact our mental health, in addition to all the other kinds of trauma that I move through the world with. So it's hard. A lot of therapists are sort of like, just shut all that out. And I'm like, I'm not built like that. I'm not going to shut the world out. I need someone who will help me be as well as I can be with my eyes open,
Yeah. And you're also down there with Mark Robinson. And we all think it's funny, but it is not funny.
It's not funny when you're there's so much about what's been happening here that I'm like, oh, I could imagine. And I think I did when I lived outside the South. I think I just looked at it and I was like, y'all ridiculous.
Yeah.
But when you're living in it, you're just like,
yeah.
I'm a person who's constantly under assault. Like, my bodily autonomy is constantly under assault. My rights are constantly under assault. And this is where all my people are from. And I think I'm supposed to be here doing my work. But yeah, looking around and just being like, oh, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing and scary, and but it's also motivating.
Yeah.
I read your writing that you posted today. I get it was like a poem or just your writing, and I could see all of the many things that you were trying to hold and what you've, trying to just process, and it helped me as well. So
Thank you.
same. I similarly have been feeling all of the things. And I have a friend who asks, like, well, when you're going through it and you're feeling really emotional, on the earlier podcast, I was talking about how just like I've been sobbing throughout the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's my stuff, but then even speaking to you, some of the question is like, oh, some of this isn't my stuff. This is just like a collective grief that we just are, you can't avoid. We're all in it together.
You have to really go out of your way right now to not be tuned into the level of collective suffering we're in. And it all interconnects, right? So like I'm also dealing with like childhood trauma, and I'm dealing with intimate loss and grief, like all this stuff in my life. And I'm like, oh, and so are all these people that I'm fighting on behalf of. Like anyone who's living through a genocide is experiencing childhood trauma, adult trauma, intimate loss, but at a rate that we could never imagine. And then I'm also like, and the Diddy thing is really triggering, and the, like the all the monsters who are being unveiled in this moment. It's like, I'm so glad the light is shining on them. I'm so glad that the patterns of abuse are coming to light. We need to be in a time when that happens. But as survivors, it's very difficult to open up the news, open up the internet, however you access the world. It's deep. I had a meditation teacher, Angel Kyoto Williams, who's a Black Buddhist, amazing priestess. And she was like, we developed all the technology to know everything that's happening in the world, but we didn't develop the spiritual technology to handle all that knowing. And I feel like that's what happens to me sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I got to level up my spiritual capacity to be in this world.
Especially doing the work that you're doing and pinpointing a lot of this stuff and having to like face it.
And try to get other people to look, to be like, just look and carry your part, like y'all know you've stepped out and you've talked about Gaza and supporting a family there. Like as soon as you take these steps, you're like, I don't need y'all to take everything. Just help me do one piece, If all of us held a little bit more, I think that would also help. That would also help with those of us who are holding it, not feeling so flooded. But yeah, here we are.
How are you, Antoinette?
Yeah.
I am, well, we just recorded an episode where we were talking about Marcellus Williams Khalifa, and amongst other things, Eric Adams and Libra season, and it being justice and balance and, all those kind of things. So it's interesting when I did reach out to Shanti this week. Was it this? Yeah, it was a couple of days ago where I was like, this really fucked me up, his execution.
Yeah.
And Shanti's response was like, I know, it's like, what did you say specifically? Something around,
I felt hopeless.
Yeah. And I was like, I feel activated. Like this fucked me up, but it fucked me up in a way where I'm online researching, all of these projects and wanting to like be more involved and figure out how I can shift my life into the direction of being more, I think more aligned with the kind of servant leadership that I love, while also being able to pay my bills. Tricky, right?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, but I'm glad that you're thinking about that. I feel like it's always trying to figure out how to be with the hopelessness, because I always think that that's the most sane reaction to most of what's happening. And then how do I move it into some action, like something that can, satisfy my life and have an impact,
Yeah. Well, hopefully this space, though, hopefully this conversation will be replenishing. That is the hope.
We can
and
do
so
it.
I'm going to be intentional about that. With that said, in case there is anyone listening to this podcast, this episode in this moment, who is not familiar with Adrienne Maree Brown, this is a space where we like to let folks identify themselves and introduce themselves.
Yeah.
So how would you introduce yourself to the Around the Way Curls
Talk your
audience?
shit.
I'm
Go
I
off.
love it. I'm like,
Go off.
well, I mean,
Well,
since you gave me room to tell y'all.
There's the
Um,
Aries energy.
so yes, Virgo Sun, Scorpio Moon, Aries Rising, um, in the Beyonce category of excellence, and really striving for that in my work, even though my work is a very different realm. I'm a writer. You know, these days that's the main thing I claim. I have been a movement worker, social justice movement worker for about 25 years, mostly doing facilitation, held space for Black Lives Matter movement, movement for Black lives, a lot of climate justice work, a lot of things like that. And then that has informed a lot of the writing I've done about how we learn from nature, how we lean into pleasure. I want to make justice and liberation some of the most pleasurable experiences we can have with each other.
mm,
And I'm a love goddess. I'm an auntie, queer polyamorist, and yeah, and I'm a Southerner who has reverse migrated myself back down to Durham, North Carolina.
Of
So
Durham.
mhm,
Hmm.
I think those are the things that matter today.
I want to
mm.
personally just point out too that you are also a singer. I
I
want
do
folks to be real clear.
Yeah.
Okay. I want folks to be real clear. Um,
Thank you.
yes.
I do
Uh,
sing.
mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it.
Okay.
This book, Loving Corrections, right
When did it come
here.
Yay.
out, Adrienne?
That's a very good question. August 20th.
Like,
Okay,
I
yeah,
was
all
like,
right.
it just came out.
it just
I
came out.
know because my friend Alexis Pauline Gumbs' book, Survival is a Promise, which is a new biography of Audre Lorde, came out on the same day. And we got to release
Oh,
on the same day. But I was like much more aware of it because I was like, our books are on the same day.
Aw.
I never quite know when mine are coming out. They always show up. They say that's the release date, but then boxes of them show up randomly before that. And so,
mm.
like, I had people saying, like, I love your book. And I'm like, how do you have it? It's like, okay. Someone lied. But anyway, yeah, August 20th was the official release date.
It's
So it's
here
available
now.
now. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's out in the world.
It's in the world.
And
And
so
there's an
why?
audiobook also available in the world.
Okay. And you're reading it.
Oh,
Is it with
It's
your
me. It's
voice?
my
it
voice.
has
And
to
what
be.
Yeah.
a great voice you
Thank
It
have.
you.
has to be
I
your
really
voice.
like doing audiobooks. It makes me, I try to
Yeah.
put a little, what do you call them? Eggs? Easter eggs?
Easter eggs.
I
Mhm.
like try to put little things in the audiobook that are not on the page. So
Oh,
Very
nice.
Beyonce-esque. Very.
I was like, no, have both experiences. You'll enjoy it.
So Loving Corrections is out in the world. Why Loving Corrections? Why now? Why in
Yeah.
this moment was it right? Was it the time?
Yeah. Well, I'm finding out that it's more right. I didn't even understand the timing of it myself.
It's like
So
perfect timing.
I'm like, oh damn, no, this is really on point right now. I was writing these essays over many years. So basically, a lot of
Mhm.
the first half of the book is called Ruminations. The second is Murmurations. Murmurations was a column I wrote for Yes Magazine, and it was all about accountability. So I was writing that column, and I knew I wanted to explore. I kept hearing people like, what does accountability actually mean? Like, are we just canceling people, or like what does it actually mean to hold people accountable? How do we avoid getting to the place of breaking completely with folks? So I did a series of essays and articles on that. So the second half of the book is that. The first half of the book was basically every time someone like hurt my feelings, made me mad, or I saw a pattern that was like, that's messed up, I gotta write an essay about it. And so a lot of it was happening while I was facilitating or while I was in relationship with folks. So I'd be like, why are all the men acting like this? Like,
Mhm.
why are all the white folks showing up this way into the space? And so I'd write these sort of big idea letters where I like a word to white people, relinquishing the patriarchy, really trying to direct my energy. And people kept telling me when I was a facilitator, like, you're such a great facilitator because you do this thing where you're able to get people together, but they don't feel depleted or dismissed or, like no longer important.
Mm.
You find a way to still hold on to that person's humanity while you're gathering them. So I was like, well, what would that be called? What would that look like? And I was like, I think the way that I work is loving corrections. And I meant corrections in the sense of course correction. Like, if we're supposed to be moving towards life and towards justice and liberation and towards pleasure and towards all these things. And we find ourselves way off course, moving into constant war, constant conflict, constant self negation, self despair. Then how do we course correct? And most of the time, it's someone else needs to help us. I often say too, I was politicized before social media and the internet. So I was politicized by people taking me and being like, girl, that's, look, you need to learn about feminism. You need to go read bell hooks.
Mhm.
You need to go read
Mhm.
Audre Lorde.
Mhm.
You need to understand this stuff. Someone loved me enough to be like, we're not going to throw you away because you just said something dumb. We're going to call you closer, bring you in, help you learn. So the spirit of the book is that it's like, let me call you closer in a lot of these arenas where there might be tension.
Mm.
And I think of it as like having an argument while holding hands, where it's like, we're connected. I'm not going to let go, but we do have to correct something here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That makes me think about in therapy, especially like I remember my therapist telling me that when I was in conflict with my mother and oftentimes I would say like, she can get very aggressive and
Uh-huh.
angry and
Uh-huh.
and so can I as a defense mechanism and and even proactively I can. And the therapist said to me, "Well, you need to touch her when you're talking to her."
Mhm.
It's
Hmm.
very hard to yell at somebody
Hmm.
and be aggressive towards somebody if you're touching them. It's
Yeah,
very difficult. It's like if a dog does something bad and then comes up and licks you and it just like completely
exactly. It's just
just
like, I'm just a
Disarms you.
puppy. I'm a
Yeah.
disarms you.
human. I'm a
Mhm.
creature that's living and breathing. That's right. I recently was in
Yeah.
an argument, my first big argument with someone new in my life.
Mm.
And I kept feeling the flare up in this person and reaching over and just taking their hand and being
Mm.
like, it's just me you're talking to. Like, you don't have to perform for some audience in your head. You don't have to get it right or get it wrong. Like, you just need to be right here with me. I don't agree with you. You don't agree with me. Let's hear each other, and see what's possible.
I have a follow-up to that. Is that okay, Shanti?
Sure.
I think I understand that, um, and I'm somebody who comes at things very practically. I'm like, well, how do I put this
Uh-huh.
into practice, right?
Hmm.
It makes complete sense with a person that I love, that
Hmm.
I have a loving connection with,
Yes.
right? And it's a person.
Yep.
I have a more difficult time with it when it's a concept
Yeah.
or a construct.
Yeah.
When it's um the IDF, or when
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Zionism,
Yes.
when it's our criminal justice
Yes.
system in quotations. I have a harder time.
Yeah.
I want to course correct,
Hmm.
but the love is rooted in the love for the people that I'm trying to protect, but
Yeah.
not the whatever that
Ideas.
thing is, that
That's
idea
right.
is exactly.
Yeah. When I was book touring this question came up around shame, right? And it was like, what about shame? What about shame? Like, are we supposed to be shaming people? And what emerged from me in that moment that I think is relevant here is I was like, we want to use shame not to hurt people. We use shame when we want to shrink something. So for me, I'm like, I want to shrink those big ideas, those concepts that feel like they've always been around, but are actually relatively young and relatively short. Zionism is not an old concept. It's a relatively short, brief thing that has been glommed on to Judaism. But all the anti Zionist Jews I
Mhm.
know are like, mm-mm, there was a Judaism before this. Jewish people will exist long after Zionism. They existed long before Zionism. And what we're trying to do is say, how do we shrink that idea, which is incompatible with life, right?
Mm.
I feel the same way with all these ideas. For me, I have, black and white family, and I look at my white family who have been steeped in white supremacy. And I'm like, I can love you as a person. I don't love this idea that you have been steeped in. I want to help you heal from that idea or release you from my idea. Sometimes I think of loving corrections as like, how do we jailbreak people out of these bad ideas? And I often have to look at my own life. I was born in a military family. I was raised
Mm.
to be a patriot. I was raised to be,
Oh.
I was raised to believe in the U.S. experiment and to believe in patriarchy and the power of men to go off and be warriors and to come home and like eat all the bread or whatever. Like I was raised that way. I was raised to be transphobic. I was raised to be homophobic. I was raised to believe that there's only one religion that actually will get you to heaven. And I was raised in all of these very limiting belief systems that were the belief systems that my predecessors and my ancestors were given or developed for some moment of their survival. That they were like, okay,
Mhm.
this is what's going to keep, okay, this is what's going to keep us. My dad didn't go into the military because he was like, I want to be a soldier. He went into the military because he was like, I want to get out of poverty and I want to be able to
Right.
move out of this small place. So I think about that. I look back at my own life and I'm like, I have always been worthwhile and miraculous and lovable, but I have been caught in ideas that moved out antithetical. Like they were like, we want to destroy every aspect of you so that you can be a cog in these systems of harm. And I have jailbroken myself out of each of those systems one by one with the help of teachers and mentors and sometimes the right movie at the right time or the right article at the right time. I'm a big reader, so books have liberated me a lot, both fiction and nonfiction. I'm always like Octavia Butler and bell hooks and Audre Lorde and like these are the people who shaped me. But yeah, what you're saying, we're not supposed to love systems that are designed to murder, designed to oppress, designed to make us small and keep us from each other. We're supposed to relinquish those, I think. But I think we are responsible for each other. And it's one of the things I reckle. I'm like, I wrestle and reckon. So there we go. It's a reckle, babe. So, but it's one of the things I deal with in my mind a lot is it's easier to walk away from someone when I see them being horrifically ignorant and hateful. And sometimes that's the safest move. But as a society, we can't keep doing that because what we're doing is sort of looking away from growing fascism, looking away from growing authoritarianism, looking away from systems that they're not getting any smaller because we turn away from them. In fact, they will always come get us. So we have to turn and face them and figure out what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love how so much of how you approach this is as relationships are this living dynamic thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, well, I know from what you've written that loving corrections is a part of the emergent strategy series.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these corrections or these observations are kind of founded in that. Can you explain a little bit to listeners what that means, what that is, and how that it's connected to it?
Yeah, I like this. I have to burp. Sorry, listeners.
It's fine. Don't worry about it, girl.
On my podcast producer keeps a track of just burps. That at some point I'm just going to give the burps, and it's just only going to be that. Anyway, yeah. So the Emergent Strategy series, the first book in that was a book called Emergent Strategy, and the idea of emergence in science is the way complex systems and patterns arise out of relatively small interactions. When I read about that, and I started to understand it means that every single thing that exists in the world, everything that seems very large is actually made up of small things acting together, small things adapting. And it gave me a sense of hope that I'm like, oh, if everything changes because of emergent or what we call fractal, like everything is small part, it's like, oh, this system at the smallest scale replicates what's at the largest scale, which is why we see something like a war and it triggers our most intimate traumas, right? That's all actually connected. Then we can actually we can influence our systems. We can change our systems through relatively small interactions as well. And this has been said by people over time. There's always a small group of people that initiate the largest changes. There's something about the dedication and the persistence of people who are like, we're not big yet, but we're willing to step out and take a risk for the sake of humanity to turn the tide in a new direction. And that will grow. It always does. If it's a good idea, it'll grow. If it's a bad idea, it'll grow, right? People are looking for folks who are willing to step up and take leadership. So it came out though, because I kept hearing people say someone was strategic. People are like, oh, that girl, she's strategic. That boy, he's so strategic. We should listen to them. And I was like, strategy can be patriarchal. It can be capitalist. It can be backwards as fuck, but it's still considered strategic if someone puts the words together in the right way. And I wanted us to be much more intentional than that. I wanted us to say, could we be strategic about being life that moves towards life? Can we be strategic about
Mm.
Black joy? Can we be strategic about not just getting to survival, but thriving? Can we be strategic if change is constant, which is also a lesson from Octavia Butler? It's like change is constant, it is inevitable. If that's the case, then can we shape change so that it actually works for us and works for the majority of people? So that book came out in 2017. And then every book after that has been trying to figure out the practical side of it. So
Mm.
the next book was Holding Change. And it was like, okay, if you believe in adaptation and getting in right relationship with change and emergence, how would you facilitate that? Here's how you facilitate it. And then there was a book called We Will Not Cancel Us. And I was like, okay, so you're trying all this stuff and you're doing all this work, and then you run into serious conflict. And what we're doing right now is trying to publicly humiliate and shame each other as a way of handling conflict. I'm
Mm.
like, that's great if you're talking about the IDF or if you're talking about a major corporation like Chevron or someone who's supporting something horrible. But if you have someone's phone number, if you could call them, if you're in community and you could get a mediator, you could handle something directly. You don't need to go to this cancellation move. And it doesn't actually work. People get quote unquote canceled. They just shift that harm into a new community, new location, and often they go harder and they're hiding it more because now they know, oh, people don't approve of this behavior. Right. So I was always like, if that doesn't work, what would work? And so that one has a lot about mediation and about getting clear on what's happening, abuse versus harm versus conflict, etc. So everything I write is sort of like, okay, how do we how do we learn to be with each other? How do we learn to be with each other? Pleasure activism is also connected to it. What I found in nature as I was studying for emergence and emergent strategy was that nature moves towards pleasure.
Mm.
Nature moves towards what feels good. Nature moves towards connective belonging. Nature moves, the species that are like us, where there's a lot of folks who have to figure out how to navigate space together that are collective. There's alpha creatures that are meant to go live in the jungle by themselves, right? That's not how we're structured. We're actually not meant to be like king of the mountain creatures. We're actually meant to be like ant hills and beehives working together to create structures for our own survival. So pleasure activism was like, well, how do we practice that? What can we learn from sex and drugs about how to be good humans?
Mm.
And it was a really fun book to write. Um, so yeah, all of that leads to me. It makes this is the next stage, right? As folks are like, well, what if it's not a full beef yet? Like, how do
Mm.
we head it off at the pass? And the idea for me, I was like, give this to your racist uncle and sit down and have a talk so that you're not just screaming at each other
So,
and so that you're not never able to speak to each other again. Sit down and be like, here's what I see in you. I see your racism. I see this. It impacts me in this way. Can we talk about it? Yeah.
Mm. I was I don't know, it just made me feel a way that you started the book off with writing gender. And
Hmm.
I'm just curious, was that an intentional choice and why?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that in some ways, for many of us, I think that patriarchy is actually one of these foundational systems upon which almost all the other oppressions that we're navigating sit. I
Mm.
also think that it's one that is extremely accessible. So,
Mhm.
I was thinking about like where to start this book, and I'm like, what is an experience that like very few people could deny having? Right? That I'm
Yeah.
like, if you live in the world, you have
Yeah.
experienced patriarchy. Either you're benefiting from it, or for the vast majority, you are being taken advantage of, being used, or being made to feel like not enough of a man or something else because of this concept. So I wanted to start the book there and just model. This is what it looks like. It's also one of my most direct things.
Yeah.
This was like
Yeah.
I am in relationship with a ton of women who primarily date cis men. And I failed at my mission of trying to queer them all. I was just like, you don't have to date them. There's cis, there's trans men. You can do some other things.
I love
But
it.
I was like, no, if you really want a cis man, you got to have that flavor. That's, it's a legitimate desire. So I was in relationship with all these women in my life who were in these intimate relationships and really being hurt in relationship with cis men. And I was going into my workplaces and finding that very, very powerful women were struggling to confront patriarchy when it was happening in a meeting, when it was happening in real time, like when a man was interrupting them over and over again, or claiming an idea that was theirs, shutting something down. So I was like, let's go. Let me just talk, men. Let me just talk to y'all, right? And especially the men who follow me. That's who I was sort of aiming for. Is I'm like, y'all are men who call yourself feminist. You call yourself trying to change the world. You call yourself radical. Some of you might call yourself hotep. You call yourself things that mean you're trying to change something in this world, but you're still embodying the most harmful aspect of yourself in the most violent way. Can we talk about it?
And weaponizing the language that they learn from you.
Exactly. Right. I was like, don't let me, don't. Yeah. That's one of the things that really upsets me the most, right? Is when a man sits down and he's like, I'm a feminist. And I'm like, then my expectations of you are that I'm not going to feel anything in you that thinks it's better than me, and anything in you that thinks it can get away with harming me. That's my expectation. It's a high bar, but it's just a basic human bar. Right? So yeah, so I love starting with that piece. And I've had that essay was in the world before the book came out. And I've had a lot of people get back to me that they've been in groups with other men to process it and to work on it together. And I love hearing that. Like, I highly encourage men to sit down with each other and think about how they reconnect to their humanity so that they can experience real love.
That section really highlighted the facilitator in you, in my opinion, where it was like, oh, I see. I saw it clearly. Like, oh, you could sit down with a group of people and go through this step by step and unpack it, and then unpack it together and be able to reach some sort of conclusion or discovery at the end. And so I know that you don't facilitate anymore, right? Or as much?
Not in that way.
Too much.
I think it took me a while to realize I was still facilitating through my writing.
Yeah.
But what happened once I started publishing books, in the world that I was in the social justice world that I was in, I started to show up in spaces and people were like, oh, I already know your name. I already know who you are. I think I know a little bit about what you care about or what you stand for. And it makes it hard. Like, for me, a facilitator is best when they're able to be part of the container of the room, right? It's almost like Adrienne is part of the wall, right? That is helping hold us. And so if you have too much of a concept of Adrienne, when I went from being Adrienne to being Adrienne Maree Brown, right, in the way that people would talk about my work, it made it harder and harder. So I was showing up into spaces and folks were like, I want to talk about you and what you think and what you believe. Or I found people being like, I don't want to speak up in front of you because whatever, I have some idea of your power. So I thought I was getting in the way of the work a little bit. And then I just wanted to be writing also, like my body, my mind, my spirit. I was just like, I have a lot I need to reflect back from the work I've done. So yeah. But I think I still do it on the page and sometimes on Instagram. So
yeah. Go ahead, Shanti. I see your question.
So it's twofold. I have a statement first. You talk about mushrooms, mycelia.
Yes.
In one chapter. And I'm going to just read what you wrote here. And you're basically talking about how mycelia are mushrooms, how they act in nature. We are teachers and we can learn from them. So what do we do with the pain? Death, grief, heartache, betrayal, and other devastations are all part of our human experience. We spend an immense amount of time trying to escape or avoid these inevitable human experiences. One of the most important lessons mycelia can offer us is how to turn and face the toxicity and pain in our world and find life in it. Mycelia has the potential life in everything. And I loved reading that. It made me cry reading that because, again, to your point, Antoinette and I had just had that conversation about Marcellus, about the execution. Yeah. And I often feel her and I's response to the world is very different. And for me, it made me feel hopeless. And I have this desire to be like, burn this shit down. Yeah. There's no way we can construct anything new. Fuck
Yes.
recycling this shit. It's dead. There's no life in it. And I was kind of like, when she was like, "Oh, I don't feel that way at all." I was like,
Huh. Mhm. Yeah.
it did a lot of things to me. I think, to be
Uh-huh.
completely honest, my first reaction was like, I felt mad, or I felt, why didn't I feel that way, or why can't I feel that way?
Mm.
It maybe
Is
there's
something
this
wrong with
part of me.
you?
Yeah, like there's just
Uh-huh.
this defeatist part of me, or like this
Mhm.
lazy part of me that's like, oh, it's over. But then reading that, and having the ultimate teacher and the ultimate example of like how you can deal with dead things, how
Yeah.
nothing is dead, for real, for real. There's always
Yeah.
some life or some inspiration to draw from. It was just like, it was heartbreaking. I don't know why I can describe it that. Like, it makes me angry in a way, because it
Yeah.
constantly puts responsibility, accountability, action, processing on back on us in a way that I'm like, fuck, why can't we just burn it down?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is that the question? Why can't we just burn it down,
And
please?
yeah, I think there's that, and also like, but wait a minute, I don't, you make
Yeah.
it clear
Yeah.
that you're not a scientist, right? But
Mm.
also, there's no places in nature where like just burning the shit down, like complete
Oh, yeah. I
getting rid
mean,
of it works, and it actually helps,
yeah. I mean,
go towards
listen.
growth in life.
Yes, there's been ice ages, right? The Earth, our
Oof.
planet, we have been on the planet that multiple times. Ice age is one way of burning down, just saying everything that is alive on this planet will now be under this ice and will no longer exist. And it's a start
Yeah.
fresh, right?
Y'all
There's
taking that.
also massive forest fires, right? Where
Yeah.
there's certain seeds that can only be released by the heat of fire, right?
Yeah.
So, and that sometimes that's what's needed is to clear the whole forest out and have something fresh start. There's definitely examples of the burn it all down in nature. What I think there's not is any examples of burn it down and it all goes away. So, like,
Yeah.
even when you burn it all
Yeah.
down, everything is still there. It's just changed form. So, you've taken a forest and you've turned it into carbon, and you've turned it into ash, and you've turned it into smoke, and you've turned it into other things that will now impact the world around. The ice age, like, we still are finding things that we're like, oh, this is in the ice, this is in the glacier. It was all still here, but it has shape shifted. So for me, it's like, whether, I feel very non-judgmental actually about the path that people take. I think we actually need all the things. I think we need the people who are like, burn this all down, we've got to start fresh. We need something new. And I think it's really important to have the people who are very pragmatic and who are like, we need to do everything we can currently to help everyone we can currently. That
Mm.
tension in the movement work I come from is often seen as the revolutionary versus the reformist.
Mm.
And the
Mm.
reformist is like, the system could be better. Let's try to make it better. The revolutionary is like, the system has already failed and we have to let it go. I feel like I sit somewhere in between the two tendencies, in that I think the system has already failed. I identify as a post nationalist. I think the US experiment has failed. But I don't think there's a need to accelerate the collapse, because I think acceleration of the collapse all lands on the most impacted people who are already struggling to keep our heads above water. So I'm always thinking, how do we help the people who are struggling keep their heads above water as we change the conditions that we're in, trusting that a certain level of collapse is inevitable in a system that is imbalanced. So our system is top heavy, right? There's a tiny elite that is trying to hoard all the resources. And if you think of it, like, if you see a tree in your mind, right? If a tree keeps trying to get a skinnier and skinnier trunk, right? Where it's like all the resources are going up, but less and less
Yeah.
support is there. And the top is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
With
And
no
there's less and
roots.
less coming down, no roots, nothing's growing wide, nothing's growing in an
Yeah.
interconnected way. Eventually that tree topples on its own. And what we want to do is, to me, be ready for that toppling. I think that toppling is already somewhat happening. I think the fact that we, you know, This is not, for instance, Israel Palestine is a great place to look. This is not the first time Israel has done any of the things it's doing now. It's at a larger scale, but this is not the first time any of that has happened. The toppling is in the fact that we can all see it happening and that it's
Yeah.
transforming how the entire world now looks and talks at this thing. We are the last ones, right? We're the ones who are like, no, we're in the boat with you. We're the last ones, but eventually this boat capsizes because you cannot treat people this way and keep moving forward through history. In history, empires always fall, always fall. But every empire thinks, no, I found a new innovative way to empire. No one's going to get, no one's going to figure it out. We figured it out. So to me, telling each other the truth and making sure that everyone else is telling the truth, that's one of the ways we hold our mycelial tendency, our mycelial responsibility. It's like, we are the thing that's going to make wide roots so that when everything topples, we know what to do. And I'm constantly trying to prepare people for that moment, right? That I'm like, you need to be in really strong relationships with a lot of people who've talked about the kind of community that you want to have and who are already practicing being in that future, because this thing is inevitably falling down. And how you experience that and how your community experiences that is going to be based on how prepared you are and how practiced you are at being in community. We're being trained to be individualists, right? To
Yeah.
be in isolation. I have to fight this every day. I'm like, I could just sit in my house and watch my shows and eat my food and never interact with another human. Everything is structured so that I could do that. I'm an introvert at heart. I would love to do that. I have to push myself to be like, keep throwing your threads out, keep inviting people to come over, keep throwing game nights, keep building relationship with real people off the internet, right? Even if you meet people on the internet, I'm like, make sure that if it's a real relationship you want to depend on, that you have an offline component of it, even if it's just by phone. But find your people who you actually want to survive apocalypse with, right? Because this is it. We're in it.
Mm-mm.
Hmm. And
Did
both
you have a
things are correct. I do want to say that both of the things that y'all experienced as a response to
yeah,
Khalifa's death, those are both, to me, this is we should feel hopeless when an innocent person is put to death. When someone who the folks who prosecuted him came and said, we don't want this,
right.
right? Everyone involved was like, we recognize his innocence. That is that is an injustice that we can't comprehend. And when I can't, I'm always like, I'm a smart girl and I can't understand this. That's when I have to give it over to something larger than myself, which is what Khalifa did. His final words were like all about giving it to Allah, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I keep seeing that in Palestinians also. Like, we can't actually
Yeah.
understand the injustice that's
Yeah.
happening, but God is greater. God is
Yeah.
greater. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
there's something about faith that we're also being called into right now, where it's like,
Yeah.
does your faith give you the strength or the capacity to move through this moment? And if it doesn't, how do you deepen your spiritual practice? For me, my spiritual practice is very much about the natural world, the living world. I have to
Yeah.
step outside and put my feet in the dirt and watch some birds, and be like, oh, yeah, there's things I don't understand. But of the things I can understand, I'm going to move, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to be as revolutionary, for me, revolutionary as I can, while taking care of as many people as I can.
You look like you
Yeah.
have a follow up. Go ahead.
Mhm.
I just want to say to what you even said, I feel like this, for that moment, hopelessness was like where I was. But then in reading that, it was like, oh, you can actually take it a little bit deeper. That hopelessness can be processed. Like there is
Yeah.
a way, there's a transmutation, there is a way through it that is possible. That was just like, it's painful. I don't know. For whatever reason, I feel it's painful for me to be like, oh, I have to sit with this
Yes.
and I have to get, it feels far more familiar. And maybe that's, I think Antoinette's frustration, a lot of people's frustration with like the burn it all down concept is like, that feels real familiar. That feels real safe, but it can go a little bit deeper than that. And like, how do you do that? How are you
Yeah.
gonna like take it down just a little bit more? And it feels far more
Yeah.
easy to just be like, no, I'm gonna sit here in my anger or in my hopelessness,
Yeah.
than transmute that into something that's alive.
Right.
right? Like, and I love
Mhm.
that it's alive, it
Right.
speaks life. It's not like this, and it's not
Yeah.
safe either. And it's not like, oh, just because it's destroyed, it the shit's gone,
Done.
girl. It
No,
might actually be worse, and that's painful.
that's
So I
painful
just,
because
I guess I just wanted to name that, and also like thank mushrooms and you for like
giving you a little glimmer of
yeah,
light.
just helping me to be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, there's something beyond this that I'm being invited to, and it hurts, and that's okay, but keep
Well, and it
going.
hurts. The thing that hurts, that's the most human part of you, right? And I think we have to
Hate
protect
that,
the part of
hated
us.
it.
I hate that.
Just
I hate
Boo.
it. I'm like, oh, the other day I was like crying and
yeah,
feeling totally out of control. And I was like, I am gonna vomit. I
I
hate this.
know. I
I hate
hate
this.
this.
Even
Not
though
me
I preach
feeling.
this, right? I'm out there like,
Uh-huh.
feel your feelings. If you walk in my house, the first thing you see is a sign that says feel your feelings and artwork that someone made me because I don't want to. No, right?
Oh.
Mm-mm.
I don't want to. Yet I recognize it is the most strategic way to human your way through life. You just
Ugh.
the faster you get to the feeling, the faster you're able to compost it into action, into new habit, into different relationship, into boundary, right?
Mm.
But I wanted to say this to you also that when you're in that place of I want to burn it all down, right? I always listen to that and I'm like, and then what? Right? I always want to know, and then what happens next? So I'm like, because I've been saying this to a lot of folks who are like in this election cycle who are like, well, what about this third party option? What about that third party option? And I'm like, to me, that's a burn it all down strategy, right? I'm like, if you know that that person can't win and can't hold, can't actually contend for political power in this election, and we're in a two party system that is ruled by elites, how are we going to navigate this? If we burn it all down, if we just say, fuck them, they're genocide heirs, we will not do it. I'm like, you're right. The analysis is correct. We stand against genocide. But what do we do in this moment to give ourselves more territory to organize in? What do we do in this moment to give ourselves more terrain? I'm always like, then what happens? And what I like to say is, are you ready? Are you actually ready for that burn down world? Right? Because you could get ready. I tell folks this all the time. I'm like, do you have some land? Where are you going to go? Do you have some people? Do any of them know how to grow food? How do you take the food out of the ground and turn it into something edible? Do you have some folks who know how to build structures? And then how do you protect those structures? Like, if we don't have new ideas that we're seeding and practicing, when we burn it all down, what we will recreate is the same thing that we just burnt down because it's the only thing we know. And I don't think that we have to all be ready. It's like, is everybody ready? Finally, we can jump. I think it's a staggered situation. We have different people get ready at different times and do different experiments to model. I always point people to look at the Zapatistas, right? The Zapatistas spent 10 years going door to door to build shared vision in Mexico for their own space, for a space where they could practice being liberated people. And in 1994, they claimed that space for themselves, and they have been in that experiment ever since, right? I'm like, they're ready, right? I was like, if they tell me, hey, it's time to burn it all down, I'm like, well, okay. Because I know I can trust that y'all have some deep skill and practice in governing in a different way and being in community in a different way. What I think for a lot of folks, especially folks, again, who are politicized online, we feel the feelings of revolution, but we haven't transitioned to having any practices of revolution. And that's a very frustrating place to be because you're like, I know I want better, but I don't know where to practice it and I don't know how to do it. So then you just find yourself in a loop. So one thing
Mm.
I always tell people is when you're having that revolutionary feeling, that feeling of like this all needs to go, find one very tangible way that you can prepare yourself for that next world that you want to
Mm.
be a part of. Find very tangible relationships where you can start saying, what are we going to practice?
Mm.
It might be just something as simple as starting a garden in your backyard, right? But I'm like, if you're not willing to do any tangible community structural things, then
Yeah.
maybe you're actually a reformist who's just really angry and you need some space to
Yeah.
say, I'm angry
Mm.
and I want to reform the current system.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
like, either way, again, I don't know that we know the right way. I don't think that there's one right way. I think the fact that all of this is happening concurrently matters. But I do think it helps. I'm always trying to feel like, how do I make myself a model of another way? And how do I practice another way?
Thank you for that. It's
Yeah.
like all the things that I wish I could say in a way that makes sense
Uh-huh.
that I don't deliver. This dog's going crazy. Do you have to go to the bathroom? Sorry. I
Oh, is that
don't know
the
if you
dog
can
that
see her in
doesn't pee
frame.
inside or pee outside or
Doesn't pee
something?
on walks, and she
Yes, that's the
she
dog.
didn't she didn't poop today, so now I think she has to go.
She's
And but
like,
she's got to
listen.
wait 1 second, sweetie.
It's like, look, I need a lawn. I need I just, when I was listening to you talk about that initially, I was like, this poor baby is like, I'm a bathroom kind of person, and y'all are trying to have me be an outhouse
It's
kind of person,
she's
and
It's
demure.
beneath me.
Okay,
I
What
don't
is
do
this?
that.
no,
I'm not
that's
gonna
demure
do that.
queen.
No.
Outside.
Um,
On with my feet touching grass? No. Mm-mm.
no.
No.
Um, I do want to ask you,
Yeah.
especially now
Hmm.
in this, and I've two things. I have two questions that I
Okay.
want to ask you. Is it as bad as we think it is? Right? It's bad. It's bad. Um, and I'm often like, I get caught up in this, and I have to go back and recognize, like, okay, certain rights are being rolled back. Yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
is it as bad as it has been? And should that even be something that I am considering, because it's
Mm.
not freedom or liberation, right?
Yeah.
And then my second question is, are we overcorrecting in
Ah,
this world? Because I
yeah.
feel like we are.
Great.
And if so, how can we combat that?
Hmm. Yeah. Good. So on the first one, a few years ago, I said this thing um, that made sense to me at the time, which was things are not getting worse, they're getting uncovered. And we must
Mm.
hold each other
Mm.
tight and continue to pull back the veil. And I still think mostly that's the case. So when we say, like, are things as bad as they seem? I think what's happening is the reality of imperialist, racialized capitalism is actually getting unveiled. So the truth
Mm-hmm.
is, we live in a country that takes without giving back. And we live in a country that uses violence to take what it wants. And we live in a country that was founded on land theft, murder, genocide, slavery, and inequality. And all of those are wounds, right? Wounds that have never been able to heal. We've never had truth and reconciliation processes, and we've never decided to be something else as a nation. We have decided we like the language of changing those things as a nation, but we've never gotten into doing the things that would mean actually changing. So these things get uncovered. The reason I say it's not actually getting worse is, to me, as if some one person has been living in these conditions, it's already been this bad. It just wasn't happening to as many people, or it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
happening to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you, right? It wasn't happening to
Yeah.
me. So I'm like, oh, the whole time I had my right for having an abortion, I was just like, yeah, I'm a liberated woman. The minute they took it away, I'm like, holy shit. But in several places in this country and in several places in the world, no one's had that right. People have never had that right, right? So I'm like, somewhere people are still enslaved, right? Now we know in the Congo, in the Sudan, slavery is happening. We know that somewhere people are starving to death. Now we can see it. Somewhere, all these things have been happening all along, right? Diddy had his alleged all along. People knew, but it's getting unveiled, it's getting uncovered. So the thing that helps me, because I think what happens is we're like, this is so bad, this is the worst it's ever been. I'm like, we can get frozen by that. We can feel so overwhelmed by that we don't act, right? They were like, it's just too bad. There's too many things. I can't keep up with all the bad. I give up. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to turn away, right? I'm just going to go, I don't know, down a Beyonce rabbit hole. I'm just speaking from experience. What will make me feel better? Upgrading something. So I feel like one of the things I keep trying to do is, how can I dose myself with what's happening and then focus my energy? So for me, this past year, I focused my energy around Palestine. It felt like this is a place where so much is getting unveiled, and I want us to hold on to each other and keep unveiling. I don't want us to pretend like that this is a both sides equal issue. I want us to really talk about it with our hearts open and our minds open, and with Palestinian and anti-Zionist Jewish voices at the forefront of the conversation. And I want to talk about what it means to be a Black person in solidarity right now, where with in relationship to two communities who have been in solidarity with Black people. I want to unveil as much as I can. So that's the first piece. I think now, even as I say that, I'm like on a level of climate catastrophe and on a level of how much of the world is armed and actively policing, I do think we're in a new level, a new scale of fascism and authoritarianism and being out of relationship with the planet. Like there are some really massive crises coming our way that could be extinction level crises. And so that does feel really bad to me. So one of the things I keep saying is not only hold back the veil, but also if it's getting worse for you, it's a sign that you've been privileged. Take it as a gift that you're now becoming a part of the rest of the world. The rest of the world, which has been trying to run their children across borders where people are shooting guns at them. The rest of the world where people have been starving all this time while sending all of their food to us. The rest of the world has been waiting for us to experience any of the things that will help us wake up to the conditions we're creating. So it's a gift. We're being given an opportunity to get in right relationship with everyone else. So that's the first one. And then the second question, tell me it again.
Are we overcorrecting?
Oh yeah. So I don't think I think this really matters. Let me see how to answer this. I think the answer to this depends on how much time you spend online. So I find for my friends who limit their time online or aren't online a lot, that they're like not in these corrective conversations all the time. I find for people who spend a ton of their time online and that's the orientation to how to be in conversation, that there's this hyper
You
corrective
reading us.
energy. Listen, me too, right? I have to check
What are you
myself
talking about? We was
regularly.
like,
Okay.
I hit
Like,
the button for the clip. I was like,
I keep myself, I
Just
limit
say
my
our name,
social
Dad.
media. I'm like, listen, Shanti, Antoinette, I need to talk to y'all. I keep a limit on how much time I spend online, and I have several friends in my life who are not on there and who help me remember when I get confused. I'm like, I can't believe everybody's da 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 da. And she's like, nobody actually thinks that. Nobody is actually asking that question. Nobody's concerned with that. But because we're online, our culture is being shaped by bots, trolls, comment farmers, and folks who are not showing up in good faith. And then we get pulled in and we're like, I am with my good faith energy going to use this opportunity to educate somebody about themselves or whatever it is. And we're just battling the wind. I see so much battling the wind in that space where I'm like, y'all are writing books in these comment sections. Go write books, like actual books. Like you're basically, I think a lot of writers are spilling their gift, spilling their pearls. What is it? Pearls in the swine or whatever. I can't
Yeah.
remember the saying, but you know what I mean? I just keep
Yeah.
watching people and I'm like, you're brilliant. You're crafting an argument. You're making a case, but you're just doing it in a place where it's not really going to have impact and where you don't know the reality of the situation. You don't know if you're talking to a person on the other side and if it's a person who wants anything like what you want. So I feel like, especially on the ones, I think when social media first started, it was like, I'm building a community of people I know, right? This is a circle of, I was on Friendster and MySpace and then Facebook, right? I was like, these are all people I know. This one went to high school with me. I don't know, but it was still people I know. Now I'm
yeah,
like, I don't know
if you're
the
even a
vast majority of
person.
people who are in my follower list. I don't know how many of them breathe. I don't know
Right.
how many of them are in the US. I don't know how many of them are interested in revolution. I don't know anything, right? I know what the little stats will tell me, which is very little about the actual humanity on the other side of it. So, all of that to say, I think this feeling of overcorrection is much higher if you're spending a lot of your day in those online spaces where it's all about the hot take and the smart comment and the um, viral,
Yeah.
statement and the reacting to things that have nothing to do with your actual life. And I think that's a way for us to feel like we're doing a lot that might not actually translate into any impact in the world. So look back at your life from the perspective of your death, and that will always help you figure out where you need to spend your energy, right?
Yeah.
The corrections you need to make, the relationships you want to invest in. It's like you're not going to be here forever. I've lost a lot of people. At my age, I'm 46. I've lost a lot of people I thought would still be here and would be growing old with me. And I look at their lives, and it really makes me take mine much more seriously. That I'm like, from the perspective of my death, do I need to respond to this comment? No, I do not. Nothing's going to happen even if I say the comment perfectly, which I do like to write a perfect comment. I will write a perfect comment. Sometimes I'll write a perfect comment and then just put it into a book file and be like, you are going to publish this, but it's not going to be on that person's terms. It's going to be on your own terms.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Thank you for that.
I have one
We're not
final
supposed to be
question.
fixing each other also. I just want to say that, as a Virgo oldest child who loves correcting everything, I've slowly been learning that we're not supposed to be fixing each other, right?
Oh,
That we're
we're
not
learning
supposed to
that
be assuming
in
that we
therapy
are
too.
right and fixing the other person. It's like, oh, that person is living their life and I'm living my life. And
Mhm.
that's why I say the course correction is not me being like, you're fucked up. It's me being like, you're in a system that is hurting you. It hurt
Mhm.
me. I got myself out of it. I want to help you get out of it. Right? Let's get free together. And then we still gonna be fighting and figure shit out. but
Right.
but then we will be on our own terms and our own agency in the rooms that we crafted for ourselves. Okay.
Final question. Do you have another question, Antoinette?
No, we have to be cognizant that we did agree to an hour.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of
Oh
time.
I have
yeah.
one more. I have one more question. I think this is a good way to end it. I
Okay,
think.
great.
Um,
I trust you.
how do we accept being corrected?
Boo. Fuck out of here.
How do we accept? How do we process correction
Yeah.
while still being loving and
Mhm.
honest
Mm-hmm.
with ourselves? Antoinette and I were just talking about something that
Yes.
happened.
Yes. Yeah.
And people, especially in the public sphere, we're correcting each other.
Yeah.
And then there's this performance of, well, let me make my statement to apologize.
Yes.
But then they're
Oh.
portraying themselves because they don't really feel
You're not there yet.
they don't understand what the fuck they really did wrong,
Right.
or they
That's
don't
right.
really feel that way.
That's right.
So or our egos are big and we're just like, what? Who are you
Yeah.
talking to? So help us with that one.
Yeah. So I'll offer a few things here that I find help me. I don't love being corrected. Um, I don't. But
There's a Virgo, Scorpio, Aries
no, I'm like, I think I'm right,
trifecta.
most of the time. And in my life, in the past 2 weeks, actually, I've had 3 occasions where I was corrected and so really truly surprised by it. Really didn't see it coming, didn't have any clue that I was like on the wrong side of a line, right?
Mm.
And so I'll say what helped me. One is slowing things way down, right? Like noticing, being able to just being like, I'm upset. Because sometimes I don't notice, right? I'll very quickly be like, "Oh, let me get you together. You must have misunderstood me. Let me like, I'm still right. You're just not understanding, And sometimes, a couple of times, I went that, I was like, but just noticing that I'm like, oh, I feel like a rug was just pulled out from me because my sense of self is tied up in like, I think I was saying something right, or I think I was doing something well meaning. So first I had to slow it down enough to be like, oh, I'm upset. I feel hurt. I feel misunderstood. And unpacking that a little bit, both by myself, and often I need to do it, some verbal processing with another person, like someone neutral to the situation, Um, the second thing is I really try to live my life constantly saying, what if I am wrong? I like to be right. I mostly think I'm right, but like, can I allow that maybe I'm like 180 degrees wrong on this one? Like all the way wrong. And because I have been, like I said, I have been wrong in my life. I have been part of systems of wrongness before. And I've been moved out of those. Now my missteps are not generally those big systems. Now my missteps are usually boundary crossings or misunderstanding things in a way that serves me. So the slowing down, asking what if I'm wrong, asking for more context or more insight, right? So sometimes I have to ask someone like, where do you see me doing that? Or what did you observe that made you say that? Can you give me a little bit more ground to stand on here? Um, I'm very wary of people who have no relationship with me trying to correct me. I'm like, you don't know me like that. You might be right, but you don't know me like that. So I'm not going to let you come at me. This is why I'm like, if someone, you know, and it took me a while to learn this too, that people want to show up in my comments and like, and I'm like, I'm actually not available for that because I don't know you like that. And if the thing you're saying is something valid, someone I do know usually will bring it to me. Most of the time, that's what happens. But relationship really matters. I have to feel like this person cares about me and wants to see me change, and they still want to be connected to me. Um, and then
That part.
sometimes it also helps if you learn your own rhythm a little bit. So I find for me it takes 3 to 4 days of sitting with something often before I'm able to get to the like, I think I see where I fucked up.
Mm.
I can see it. And once I see it, it's like one of those images where you're like, it's an old lady. No, it's a young lady. It's like that level of like, oh God, not only was I wrong, I usually go big and loud with my wrong, right? I'm like, boom, I was so wrong, but I thought I was so right. So now that I know that rhythm, I let myself slow everything down. Again, the pace of social media is not the pace at which most people change or even acknowledge that something is wrong. I don't apologize until I know for sure that I get it. So I will say to people, can I have a few days to sit with this? Can I come back and talk to you about it, in a little bit? Especially if they caught me way off guard. Like I didn't ask for this conversation. I have one of my partners now is so sweet. She'll say, can I lift something up to you? And like really makes it clear that it's like there's something you're trying to bring to my attention. And I've started using that with everyone else I'm in relationship with because I'm like, this makes it clear that I need you to turn and face me and give it to me straight. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think it's also, I know that I can survive having my feelings hurt and I can survive being wrong. Like I have survived it so far in my life. And now it's kind of, I'm like, I'm wrong in public, I'm wrong in private. Like, and that's how I learned. That's how I get to be a better person is by people, you know, I think of it more like spinach in the teeth than like fundamental falling off the cliff
Yeah,
of life,
terrible.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, like the people in my life are not ones who want to throw me away. If I only let
yeah.
people toss me to the side once, right? So I'm like, if you can't hold it, I'm not going to come back and beg. But for the people who know how to hold me, they want to hold me. So they're telling me this so that we can be closer and so that we can stay in relationship. And they're telling me that just so you'd be like, you have spinach in your teeth. You did something that I can't let you walk out with your slip showing like that, baby girl. That kind of, if I can feel that that's actually a lot of times the energy of it, that really helps me. Yeah, those are some of the ways,
Those are great.
Those are great
Mhm.
ways.
And then work
Thank you.
out. I also like to really work out. I go for a swim.
Mm.
It usually feels different by the time my swim is over.
In the body, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving through it.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Literally just
crying.
talked about
I
all
do
of
want to
this.
say that a big fan of crying. Like, I got my feelings hurt. I'm crying. I feel embarrassed. I'm crying. I feel ashamed. I recently had someone who I thought I was starting a new friendship with, and they were like, actually, no. And I'm like, I'm so sad about that.
That would
Right. It makes me so sad, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's okay. You can just feel sad about that. And then they get the choice. They, like everyone gets to decide who's in their life and who's not in their life. We don't remember that we can do that. But I'm like, oh yeah, you get to make a choice. I'm a lot of person to take on as a friend. So yeah, you have agency, right? Yeah. So I think those are some ways.
Thank
Feel
you.
your feelings, Shanti.
Thank you. Feel my feelings. Boo! Yuck. Nasty.
Yeah, I really appreciate
Literally,
y'all.
I
that
don't
was
have a choice. Like that's where I'm at right now. Like
Yeah.
I've spent so much time not that it's
Well,
like
especially where y'all are in your late 30s, that's what it's all about. Like this,
oh
I'm so excited for y'all because the 40s, by the time you hit the like early 40s, you're like, I feel my feelings. That's my
I
thing. That's
pray. I
my
want to
thing,
be there
right?
now.
Now I'm in
I'm
perimenopause where I'm like, I don't like this hormonal feeling shit though. This is different. This is now, these are not even my feelings. This is like a war
your
going on
body's
inside. Yeah.
yeah.
So, but you know, you got a while. You're good.
Shanti, God got you because you literally all of her updates were lit for the episode we just recorded.
Wow.
Were literally
Yeah.
this.
Wow.
Were they not?
Great.
Yeah.
Right
Were
on
they not?
time. Right
Yeah,
Yeah,
on time.
like
for sure.
it's the message is right
sure.
there. I'm
Really
listening
are.
too, but I like a good cry
Sorry,
in the tub.
my
You're like, I
earphones.
like to cry
Okay.
and take action.
So yeah,
Yeah.
cry through it.
Yeah.
Thank
What's
you.
your sign?
I'm a Libra.
Libra. And what are you, Shanti?
A Sag.
Savage,
Of
Sag.
course. We should have started there. I'm like, yeah.
No, I'm a Sag with a Gemini moon and an Aquarius rising. So it's
Oh
just
my gosh. I think that's
yeah,
what
it's just
yeah, that's a lot. The
it's
Aquarius
a
is
lot
like,
of
I'd rather go to Pluto than deal with this right
hey,
now.
what the fuck are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Why are we here?
avoid,
Libra's like,
avoid.
I just want to balance it all. It's my season.
Yeah, like come on, guys.
Oh, so sweet. I've got my Mars and Venus are in Libra as well, which is really confusing for the rest of myself because I'm just like, this balance shit is not where I want to be very do a different thing. But I'm really grateful I have it. I'm getting more and more grateful as I age. Okay, let's go. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, it's such an honor and a pleasure
It really
to
is.
talk
It's
to you.
just
You have no idea. We
the
would
fact that
hold
you
your
can
little
listen to the podcast
right.
is just like
We would hold your book up and be like, one day we're gonna talk to her, and
oh,
that
really?
happening is like amazing. Yeah,
I'm so grateful to
yeah,
hear that. I
really.
really like, I just think there's not enough. There's so many podcasts in the world, but not enough of them are intimate and vulnerable. Like, I'm just like all this talking and so little sharing. So I'm really grateful for y'all.
Thank
You're
you. Thank you.
palpable.
Thank
well, listeners,
Yeah.
get your copy of Loving Corrections.
I like that you're holding it up. for questions.
Adrienne Maree Brown, part of her Emergent Strategy series. Learn more about that. And do you want to share with folks how they can
be in connection.
connect with you, but not
Yeah.
correct you? Don't be it. You all know her well enough to
Right.
be in her DMs or in
I
her
mean,
comments.
I'm
Y'all better
willing
relax.
to,
Correct.
become my friend and then correct me. No, so I on Instagram is my main outlet for my existence when I'm on the social medias. I do these I'm like a meme
Yeah.
You
witch.
do.
I
You're
basically am
very
like
good.
God.
that's the main place. And then read the books, everything I know is in there so far.
Read the books, website, all the things.
Oh yeah, adrienmareebrown.org.
We'll plug it all. We will
Okay.
have it all in the description. I hope that you have a rest of your week filled with ease, with comfort, joy, and balance.
Thank
Truly,
you.
I do.
Are y'all in New York?
I'm in New York. I'm in
You're in
Brooklyn.
New York?
Philly. And I'm in Philly.
I'm doing my little East Coast tour over the next couple of days.
You're
I probably
coming
am supposed
to
tell
Uncle
you this.
Bobby's. Yeah, come
Oh,
on,
you're supposed
tell
to
us.
promote this.
See, I don't know how. I don't do this.
Screaming like, girl.
I was like, "Where are you guys? I want to talk to you." No, so this is I have this is my first time ever having a publicity team helping me, right? I've never had this before. And they're like,
Shout
"Can
out to
you
you.
mention having a bookstore? Can you mention I'm like,
Oh my God.
Mention your book and
mention the book and like what you're doing." So so I did a little Southern driving book tour and now I'm doing a little East Coast book tour. So I'm going to be in Baltimore, Philly, DC, and New York over the next week. Probably not in time. I think this will air after that, but then I'm going to be going other places. So,
We'll
but
put it on the socials at least so
is
people
that
can
on
see.
your site that people can see the schedule?
Yes.
adrienmaree.org, adrienmareebrown.org.
Yes, I believe it's on the schedule and it's also on AK Press's website. So
okay.
It's on there. I'm looking at it.
Okay.
All right. I see it. I
Thanks.
see it. I see
Yes.
it. Wonderful.
I may see you at Uncle Bobby's then.
Yeah, come
If our stars align,
it's
I'll,
just pure
I'll
book
come.
signing. That one is just like getting to say hi to people and sign books. So,
Well, I have my
Okay.
books though.
yeah, come say hi.
Very dope. Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, you stop the thing.
Oh,
right?
stop the thing.